If you think that what's happening in 2020 is just unprecedented, you're wrong. I thought it was unprecedented too. I thought we've never seen anything like this. I was very wrong. We just haven't lived long enough to see it all. All right, so they have an official policies on their website. So I just went down and wrote down what the policy is. You can listen to different people talk, okay? You can listen to people talk out of their mouths about what Black Lives Matter is. But you want to really find out, I'm going to go to the exact policy that they say is agreed to in the war on Black people. This is where you get the state-sanctioned violence part, where the belief is that of institutional racism and systemic racism, where cops are actually targeting Black people, state-sanctioned violence. What's interesting is I won't say most people, but there was a high-profile interview a while back. If I say the names, you know what I'm talking about, where there was a reporter talking to a celebrity, and they were both Black, and the celebrity was calling out Black Lives Matter for not being concerned about certain social issues. And the interviewer, the guy on, I won't say the network, excuse me, the reporter kind of, tried to fact check him and say, well, Black Lives Matter is just about state-sanctioned violence and police brutality. So they don't have to be concerned about these other things. The common criticism I heard is you don't criticize the American Heart Association for not raising money for lungs, because they're specifically about hearts, Okay, so they say, okay, Black Lives Matter is just about state-sanctioned violence. So they don't have to be concerned about anything else like Black on Black crime or abortion rates in the Black community. You don't got to be concerned about that because that's what they decided to form their organization on. That would be a great fact check if it was true, but it's not.
That's right.
They've never just been about that. They have a whole policy that I'm about to break down right now, and it involves a lot of things. And so I'm going to go through those things, and then I'm going to compare them to the issues actually facing the Black community and find out if it actually lines up.
Right.
So in the war on Black people, that covers a lot of things, but one of those is the police brutality thing. Then you have invest, divest. They mentioned they wanted investments in the Black communities. So some of the things they want are universal health care, free education for all, free health services, and sustainable energy, to name a few. So we went from some stuff about Black people to a socialist ideology. Universal health care, free education for all, free health services, sustainable energy. Okay, fair enough. Next one is reparations. That's self-explanatory. Next one is economic justice. They want to restructure the tax codes to ensure a radical and sustainable redistribution of wealth. That's another socialist term. They want democratic control of resources. They want to break up large banks. Renegotiation of all trade agreements to prioritize the interests of workers. When you hear common, comrades, workers, people's fronts movements, those are all communist terms. So we went from, again, Black people to workers, okay? So now we're getting back to a communist ideology. Also, they want respect protesters. Violations of property should never be equated with the violation of human life. What does that mean? When the riots started happening, a lot of people, reporters, were confronting Black Lives Matter leaders and saying, are you okay with this? In the name of Black Lives Matter, you got people rioting. There were other organizations, you had Antifa and other things like that, but they were saying, are you saying yes to the riots? As far as I could tell at that point in time during the investigation, you never got a Black Lives Matter leader to say, yes, we're pro-riot. But they would say the statement a lot, that destroying property, destroying someone's business is not the same as the loss of a Black life. So if you're saying you care more about businesses being destroyed than you care about the people that we're marching for, then you have a problem. So that's the go around that. We're not saying we're pro-riot, but we don't believe that when property gets destroyed, that's as important as a Black life being lost. Okay, fair enough. These are all the issues that they came together in 2015 and 2016, decided this is what's important, and it's still there in 2020. This is what's most important to the Black community if we're going to change the Black condition. It isn't just state-sanctioned violence, it's all this other stuff. So in my investigation this year of all the problems facing the Black community, internally, externally, I decided to take it from my own perspective and say, if I was creating a Black movement concerning all the issues facing the Black community, what would I focus in on? Would I come to their same conclusion? I came to a different conclusion. Now, granted, everyone's different. You are allowed to create any kind of organization, do whatever you want. But if you're going to build yourself as the voice for Black people, and you're going to go as far as to create yourself what is essentially now a political party, as a Black person, I'm interested to know, do you actually have my best interests at heart?
That's right.
And it's okay for me to ask that question and analyze that. That's okay. So let's look at some things I came up with. All right, so in the CDC said in 2016, the leading cause of death in Black men aged 1 to 19 and 20 to 44 is homicide. Okay, that's number one. Now, when you look at who was the homicide perpetrated by, this is when we get into Black on Black crime. Now, this is a touchy subject. Nowadays, it's a lot harder to say black on black crime. Now you'll get attacked for that because you're saying, well, white on white crime is just as high as black on black crime. So why are you bringing that up? Well, one thing I would say is just because someone else is doing it doesn't mean it's good. I mean, if this is the number one leading cause of death for young black men, I would want to do something about it. I don't care what white people are doing.
Yeah, and see, that's the thing. I'm trying to. It just so, it's a problem.
Yeah.
And it's a self-inflicted problem.
Well, here's the interesting thing. Before we even have to defend that point, there's another layer to that. It's not just, okay, well, white on white crime is the same. In white men, 1 to 19 and 20 to 44, that same statistic, age range, homicide is only 4 and 5 on the list of the things that are the leading cause of death, according to CDC. Mm-hmm. So although the rate of white people killing white people is about the same as black people killing black people, it's not the leading cause of death in young white men. It's the leading cause of death in black men, which means it's happening at a greater number. Even if the rate is the same, it's still happening at a greater number. It's a bigger problem in the black community than it is in the white community. It's a problem in all communities. Homicide is homicide. But if you're looking at this, it's okay to say, wait a minute, what is going on? Can we look at this? It's not racist to say, let's look at this, because it's number 1 for black people, but only number 4 and 5 for white men in the same age range. So something is happening here. Yeah. It's different. Now, I said, okay, where does police brutality and police force rank as far as the effect on black lives? Obviously, it's happening.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's happening.
Yeah.
So let's find out. The University of Michigan discovered in 2017 that suicide is the second leading cause of death in young black men. Use of police force is number 6. So it's down to number 6 is where police force is.
Wow.
But number 1 is homicide. Number 2 is suicide. I didn't know that.
You know what? That blows my mind.
Because isn't there a belief in the black community that black folks don't commit suicide?
Yeah.
Isn't there a belief that's like a white thing?
Yep. And not only that, even with certain crimes, like you get serial killers and things like that. That's, in the black community, there's belief that we don't do that.
Exactly.
And to see this suicide.
But it's suicide. And I was like, why am I not hearing more about this? Why are they talking about this? Like mental health, we're big on mental health today.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about that everywhere. But when it comes to the black people, and once again, you can make an organization on whatever you want. But again, if you are billing yourself as the quote unquote political party for black people, and you're choosing what are the main issues facing the black community, and you pick number 6, and then a bunch of other socialist ideologies, you skip homicide, you skip suicide, and some other things about to go down here. I'm wondering, where did that come from? That's all I'm asking. Where did it come from? Hey, you can do whatever you want to do. I just want to know where it came from.
Yeah.
All right, next up, CDC report in 2016 found that non-Hispanic black women, so black women, accounted for 38% of abortions in the United States. So out of 1,000 live births, 401 were abortions. That's 25.1%. So when you look at black women having babies, live births where they couldn't return or whatever, I wouldn't say they return, but live births where there wasn't a miscarriage, 25%, a quarter of those pregnancies end in abortion for black women. That's higher than any other race. In 2015, 79% of Planned Parenthood surgical abortion facilities were located in minority neighborhoods. I consider that targeting.
Yeah.
Now, what came first, chicken or egg? Well, because black women are getting more abortions, that's why there's more Planned Parenthoods in minority neighborhoods. Maybe. I can't prove that that's not accurate. But I find that to be targeting.
Well, when you look at the founding of Planned Parenthood, that in itself will give you the answer.
Margaret Sanger, yeah.
And you know what? Point blank, period. I mean, at that point, you there's no argument for that at that point. When you recognize why Planned Parenthood was started, who started it, and the whole bit.
Yeah. And look, I know the common criticism. Well, you're just trying to distract from the police brutality problem. I'm not distracting from anything. We're well aware of it. I mean, I don't got to talk about it. It's on the news every single day. So it's getting a lot of press. But I'm just kind of wondering
if that's sixth,
where this comes in when Black Lives Matter. I'm just curious. Because you're not just about state sanctioned violence. You got a whole other list of policies. Where does this rank in? One thing that came up in my study was the rate at which black people commit violent crime. It's not a nice statistic. We don't want to talk about it, but it is true. And to be fair, I'm going to bring it up. And that is that the Bureau of Justice Statistics, blacks accounted for over half of all homicides between 1980 and 2008, while only representing 11.7 to 12.6 of the population between those years. So although we're just about 10%, a little higher, of the population, blacks are accounting for over half of all homicides. So does that affect the interaction rate with police officers? Does that affect perception of black people? It would be prejudice if a police officer, because of this statistic, treated a black person they never met based on that, was on guard thinking, oh, they could try to kill me. It risks to think that. On the flip side, it would be prejudice of me to think that because the police officer pulled me over and then I'm black, that he's going to kill me. So either way you look at it, it would be prejudice if I went off of these statistics. But the point is, I was wondering if that had an impact. While doing that, I found something out that is also an issue in the black community that I feel like is very important. And I think a lot of people agree with me on this. And I'm going to quote a former president who said this: children who grow up without a father are 5 times more likely to live in poverty and commit crime, 9 times more likely to drop out of schools, and 20 times more likely to end up in prison. They are more likely to have behavioral problems or run away from home or become teenage parents themselves. And the foundations of our community are weaker because of it. The president who said that was Barack Obama. And I don't know what he was quoting, but there is a 2018 Pew Research Center article that shows that half of black children, more than half, are living in a single-parent household. 47% in a single mother household, and that's more than any other race. So what we're looking at, fatherlessness, is a huge issue in the black community as well. 1998 studies show that father absence doubles the odds of incarceration, even when other factors that have a negative influence on youth are held constant. Even when you hold constant parent education, family income, urban residence, race, and being born to a teen mother, the thing that doubled the odds of incarceration was father absence, fatherlessness. That's a huge issue in the black community because over half of children are growing up in a fatherless household, well, 47%. And then, well, what does Black Lives Matter have to say about that? On their website, they have written, their stance on family unit is to disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family structure requirement by supporting each other as extended family and villages that collectively care for one another. When we gather, we do so with the intention of freeing ourselves from the tight grip of heteronormative thinking. So, the organization that is the paragon of what black people need in the black condition is pushing against what black people actually need, which is more fathers in the household. That is a legitimate, factual issue. That's one of the other issues I mentioned. So, in review, the Movement for Black Lives website, their policy does not include homicide, suicide, disproportionate abortion rates, racial targeting by Planned Parenthood, or the fatherless epidemic in the black community. They don't cover any of that. But they do have universal health care, free education, redistribution of wealth, control of resources. These are all uniquely socialist and communist ideals. And these are the pillars of their policy. They also have written on that website, we are anti-capitalist, which is a uniquely communist ideal. To mention the whole defund the police policy they have, that's actually not an ideal that black people share.
Yeah.
A study done in August of this year, 2020, a Gallup poll, found that 61% of black Americans want to retain the current police presence in their neighborhoods. 20% want more police presence. You combine that, that's 81% of black Americans want either the same amount or more police presence in their communities. Only 19% want less. And yet defund the police is being billed as the thing that matters for the black lives and black condition, defunding the police. And yet only 19% of black Americans actually even agree with that sentiment. They want more police or the same.
And this is an organization that's supposed to have the desires of what black folks want.
But it doesn't. In communist ideology, police are a tool of the elite class and they're against the working class. So police only have the interests of the rich and they're anti the poor and the working class. So the police are the enemy in communism.
Right.
So defund the police is a communist ideology. So I went to the About Us section of the Movement for Black Lives website, and it said, we believe that prisons, police, and all of the institutions that inflict violence on black people must be abolished. That's interesting. And not just defund it, and not just take the money and put it somewhere else, but abolished. I found a downloadable document on that website that says the criminal justice system has been used as a tool of the state to delegitimize and neutralize people's movements throughout history. Not necessarily just black movement, but people movements. Once again, it's a communist ideology, communist term. So what's interesting is that same document, and I feel like I'm pronouncing her name wrong, forgive me, but that same document wanted the immediate release of all political prisoners in federal custody. All of them. I don't even know who all that is, but that's what they want. That's part of the policy of Black Lives Matter. and they want the removal, and I may be saying her name wrong, of Assata Shakur from international terrorist list. And I'm going to take a slight detour here, but it's not a detour. It's a circle that loops right back around. It may or may not blow your mind. It kind of blew mine. So Assata Shakur, she was a Black Panther, Black Panther Party. I found out in this study that Black Panther Party was started by 2 Harvard students who were Black and who were Marxists. They started Black Panther Party. There's another organization called the Black Liberation Army that the Black Panther Party, I guess they created because it was everybody who was a Black Liberation Army member were only Black Panthers too. So they were all like, that was the entire group was Black Panthers. And I guess there was some violence going on because she was arrested and convicted of killing some state troopers. She spent time in prison, but she escaped prison. And she was last seen in Cuba. She could still be alive, I don't know, but she could be in Cuba right now. So they want her removed from international terrorist lists. But the Black Liberation Army doesn't exist anymore. Right. There's another organization that also had the ideology of Marxism and Black Power, and it was called Weather Underground. Weather Underground and the Black Liberation Army combined and created a new organization called the May 19th Communist Organization. So if there's any doubt it was communist, now you know, because they created that. But before that happened, Weather Underground was its own separate organization before that merger. And it had many members, but it had a guy named Eric Mann. He was a member. He believed in violent direct action. He was arrested for conspiracy to commit murder, assault, promotion of anarchy, threatening. He spent time in prison. After prison, he started an organization called the Labor Community Strategy Center. It was there that he mentored Patrice Kahn-Cullors, co-founder of Black Lives Matter Global Network. So a guy who was part of Weather Underground, communist, spent time in prison, came out, started this organization. Patrice was a part of this organization, and he mentored her. I know for a fact that he mentored her and they interacted because she said so out of her own mouth. She did an interview with Democracy Now! And she stated that that Labor Community Strategy Center was her first political home. One of the interviewers then said, oh, that was started by an old friend of mine, Eric Mann. Patrice responds, yes, Eric Mann, that's my mentor. So it kind of comes full circle. Yeah. And then how you come back to communism. Yeah. So that was my concern. I wanted to find out for myself what it was about. And I found out things I didn't know. I heard people say that Black Lives Matter was the Marxist organization because everybody caught when the co-founder said that, hey, we're trained Marxists, and everyone ran with that. I was like, okay, but I want to know more. Yeah. And it's actually in the ideology. It's not just the people, the ideology of it. It's a communist ideology. But I was like, what does that have to do with Black people? Like, what? And it was a legitimate question. It wasn't me saying, oh, it has nothing to do with Black people. I really want to know, what does it have to do? And what I found out is that Black Lives Matter, the idea of it is not new. It is actually the latest in a long line of communist organizations that have duped and manipulated Black people for a very long time, for almost 100 years. And it was shocking when I realized it, but this is nothing new. What's happening now has happened before. I found a book that was written in 1958. It's called Color, Communism, and Common Sense. It's written by a man named Manning Johnson. In the next video, I'm going to break down this book. We're going to analyze it, and there's a link to it in the description of the video. So that you can read it for yourself too. And I believe every person who calls themselves a citizen of the United States of America needs to read this book. Because when you read this book, it will tell you exactly what is happening in America right now, what Black Lives Matter is from a historical context, and why everything that's happening, and how Black people have been manipulated, duped by communism for a long time, even when it wasn't called by that name. It's not a conspiracy, it's just facts, it's the truth. So we're gonna talk about that in the next video. So thank you for watching, subscribe to the notification bell. We'll be right back tomorrow to continue the discussion.